Good morning in Oldish land, or a good afternoon, I guess it is really. Thank you for all of my community friends who are joining us today on this broadcast. It is a bit of a snowy day here in southwestern Ontario. We got snow last night. I guess New York and that area is getting a whole lot more than we are, but at the moment it's 2 degrees Celsius outside, so the snow is melting. Who cares? It's going to come, it's going to go. Anyway, I'm happy that you're all here with us today. So I am Karen Brown, the publisher and editor of The Oldish, and this week on The Oldish, we're going to talk about the articles we published, including one that raised a little bit of ire. We're going to talk about news from around the world for and about Oldishers, and we're going to take a look at hip protectors and other devices that keep you safe in the event of a fall. So lots to cover. So let's start with this week on The Oldish. We published a bunch of really interesting articles, actually. There was an article about better nutritional drinks for seniors. So you know those, there are a couple of brand names, so I'm not going to say a brand name, but they are drinks that are meant to augment the nutrition for aging seniors who perhaps aren't able to consume all of the vitamins and minerals and nutrition that you want them to get from their food. So they have these canned drinks. A research study is looking at whether or not we can do better. And of course we can do better. They suggest some interesting things that we can do to up the nutrition level by decreasing sugar and some of the other things that maybe aren't as great as they might be for us. So take a look at that article. This month, March, is Kidney Month. So there's an article on kidney health. Our author, AJ Jones, who for the last year or so has been taking us on a journey with she and her mother as her mother experiences Alzheimer's. And really, it's an experience that is shared by both of them because it certainly is something that impacts the family. So this week, AJ published chapter 14 and chapter 15. So I invite you to carry on that journey with her. And if you have not read chapters 1 through 13, they are linked on the side of any article. You can go to any one of the articles in that series and you can link to all of them. And they're in order even. As we approach Easter, which is of course the highest holy day of the Christian calendar, we took a look at dementia-friendly churches. And really, it doesn't matter whether you go to a church, a synagogue, a mosque. It doesn't matter where your house of worship is or what denomination it is. Whether or not it is dementia friendly is something that more and more of these denominations are going to have to take a look at because more and more of their congregants are aging. They're in that demographic and they're going to be experiencing some memory loss and dementia related responses to the service itself. So read that article and take a look around your place of worship. We also published a really interesting article on, it has to do with falls and tripping. The University of Illinois is doing an interesting experiment trying to increase muscle memory, really is what it is, for aging seniors. So what they do is they hook them up to an apparatus that is connected overhead and they put them on a treadmill that simulates some tripping hazards. So as they go along and encounter these hazards, of course, the harness balances them, but they learn how to move their body and shift their weight so as to prevent potential trips and falls. And of course, the dangers that come with that, like hip fracture. So it is creating muscle memory. And muscle memory, you know, it's a really interesting thing. It lasts a long, long time. There was recently, completely unrelated to this, but there was a robbery in the town where I live. And the gentleman who was robbed had been in the militia in his home country 35 years ago. He had received training and weapons training and how to deal with combat situations. And so he was running this convenience store when these two armed robbers broke into it a week ago. This was just last week. And his militia training and the muscle memory with that kicked right in. He didn't even hesitate. He dealt with it, and these robbers figured they had encountered the wrong person, and off they went. So they have now identified them and arrested them. But isn't that astonishing? Muscle memory for activities that this gentleman learned 35 years ago still kicked in. So I think that for seniors who are concerned about falling, creating that muscle memory through these kinds of simulations, through yoga, through Tai Chi, which teaches better balance, is really a helpful thing. We should probably all be doing it, and reducing our risk of falls and the potential for hip fractures and other injuries that can come with it. The article that we published that raised a lot of ire had to do with a CTV News report that indicated that seniors are topping the list for car crashes over the 5-year period from the year 2000 to 2015. Now, whenever we publish an article like that, and I share it on our Facebook page, there's a lot of comment about it. People feel, seniors in particular, feel that they're being attacked as a group, that their skills should not be called into question the way that they are, that they shouldn't be singled out as a group. The question I asked when I posted it this time was, what's your plan? I was really interested to see that nobody has said what their plan is. Nobody has a plan for turning over the car keys or for identifying when perhaps their time is up. And let's face it, people, we all get to that point where we can't have the movement that we need to be trustworthy operating a motor vehicle. I mean, we don't trust 5-year-olds to do it. We don't trust teenagers to even start the process until they're 16. So, you know, there comes a time at the other end where our capacity has diminished, whether it's through physical mobility, whether it's through comorbidities and other illnesses that we might develop as we age. Perhaps it's dementia. People all the time, I read it in the news all the time, where people are driving a car and they don't have any idea where they are. And that puts them in a very dangerous situation to be on the road. It puts other drivers in a dangerous situation too. So, you know, I think that part of the point of this news article was made by when it said that the number of seniors in that demographic is increasing so much that we can certainly anticipate that more seniors would be involved in car crashes. A lot of the commentary revolved around, well, whose fault was the crash? They don't say. Maybe it wasn't the senior. Maybe it was somebody else who was responsible for the crash. And the senior just got identified because of their age. And that's age profiling. Nobody said age profiling, but I'm going to call it that. In this country, the vast majority of our provinces are no fault or partial fault. So even at the scene of an accident or a car crash, they aren't called accidents anymore because they're regarded as preventable. At the scene of a car crash, the police officers involved do not identify fault. That is not part of what they do, not in most of the provinces anyway. And the insurance companies also don't assign fault. So in the absence of fault being assigned, Transport Canada and Stats Can are unable to gather statistics about who's responsible. So this article did not report on who's responsible. They simply reported on who's involved in who's dying more as a result of car crashes. But again, I'll go back to the fact that that was not the question I asked. What's your plan? Do you have to move from where you live so that you are more accessible to public transit? Do you make arrangements with taxi companies or Uber or Lyft? Are you within walking distance of grocery stores? Do you move to an apartment that has services and amenities within it? I don't know the answers to all of those. That's up to each person to arrange for themselves. But of all of the people who commented, and there have been a lot of comments on that Facebook article, nobody has a plan. They all just want to say that the numbers are false, that the data is wrong, that the statistics can be used to say anything that anybody wants them to say, that seniors shouldn't be blamed. Nobody's blaming anybody. The statistics are just reported as statistics. It's data. One lady even posted a link to Stats Can. And so I sat there and I added up all of the car crashes in the age groups that were identified in the CTV News article, and I posted them and said, well, yeah, the Stats Can, thank you for the link. The Stats Canada figures support the finding of the article, that seniors are in fact involved in more car crashes than the 25 to 34 age group, which was the other age group that this was measured against in the CTV News article. So, people, the message of the Oldish, the core message has always been advocacy. And this is one of those areas where you need to advocate for yourself. You need to have a plan. You need to have a plan for how you're going to get to the grocery store when you're 80. You need to have a plan for how you're going to get around to your medical appointments when you're 75. Are you going to depend on other people? Are you going to move into long-term care? It's no different with the automobile that you drive. What is your plan? How do you plan to get around when you no longer feel capable of driving a car? Or perhaps when other people decide for you that that capability has left your life. I'm not saying it makes you happy, but I am saying that it's helpful to have a plan. Take the power for yourself and make a plan. Don't let others decide for you. Advocate for yourself, make a plan for yourself, and then enact that plan. It has the same effect whether it is your living circumstance or your work circumstance or your driving. So for those of you who commented on the Facebook post, thank you very much. I'm always happy to see the community engaged with the material that we present to you. But I'd still like to know what your plan is. I'd love to know what your plan is. Okay, so let's go on to news for the Oldish this week. News for and about. So a professor at McGill University, his name is Judes Poirier, said that longevity is estimated to be 30% a matter of genetics and 70% a matter of lifestyle and environment. And in that study, he talked to a lot of different people. And there was a 102-year-old lady by the name of Doris Lerner Schwartz, whose husband died in 2005. And one of the questions that the professor asked her was, what about boyfriends? Doris's response, who needs the old geezers? She is quite capable of living on her own and being on her own. And, you go, Doris, 102, and you don't need a boyfriend. That's pretty good. On an interesting note, in the US, where they report on statistics related to poverty, there was an interesting report on how the data is reported, specifically regarding seniors in the US. So it turns out there are two measurements. There's the official poverty measure, and there's a second one called the supplemental poverty measure. Now, the supplemental poverty measure reflects things like financial resources and liabilities, such as taxes that have to be paid, benefits that are available like food stamps, out-of-pocket things like medical expenses, which are, of course, generally higher among the older population. And it also reports on geographic variations in housing costs. Now, when you look at the difference in these two, it's really quite startling. The supplemental poverty measure reports that people 65 and older number 7.1 million in the US. If you look at the official poverty measure, so that's the one you're going to hear their government referring to most often, the number is 4.6 million. So that's nearly 3 million more. 4.6 million is the official measure, 7.1 is the supplemental poverty measure. It's really quite startling. I find it quite startling anyway. There was recently a World Congress in Barcelona on Mobile World. It was called the Mobile World Congress. And some really interesting new technologies were brought forward to look at how we monitor adults who are aging in place. Now, we've talked about this here before. We've published articles on the Oldish before that look at various technologies to monitor seniors. Mostly they involve video cameras that can physically keep an eye on seniors. Fall monitors, of course, that are attached, things you can wear around your neck or your wrist to notify people when you yourself have fallen. But these new technologies that were reported are really interesting and use different kinds of measurements. So this one company called VoltaWare has a sensor that's attached to the main fuse box in a house. And its job is to measure energy use in the house. So you know yourself when you get up in the morning, you might turn on a light, you might turn on the coffee maker, make yourself a coffee. You might turn on the news or your computer, see what's going on in the world. You might have a shower, which uses hydro to power the hot water heater. Even if it's gas, there's still some hydro involved. So what this sensor does is it learns the normal energy use. And when something happens that deviates from the normal energy use, it reports that to the caregiver via an app. That's a little bit brilliant, don't you think? I like that idea. There's another company that's done something along the same lines. It's called Vayar, V-A-Y-Y-A-R. And it's developed a sensor that uses radio waves. Now, radio waves can see through the walls of a house, so you only need one of these sensors in the house. And what it can do is it can see if a person is standing, sitting, has fallen. It can tell if a person has stopped breathing. Radio waves. Okay. There's a Canadian company in this game too, called Ariel. Now it's a startup company, just brand new. I believe they're in Quebec. And what Ariel has done is developed a system that tracks disturbances to a Wi-Fi signal. So when a person moves, they can identify it. Not they, the system can identify it, and it transfers that data to an app. So they're looking at the next level now, where this system predicts falls by identifying changes in gait or walking speed. Kind of fascinating, eh? I love technology. I just love technology, and I hope that in another 10 or 15 years, when I'm in need of it, there's going to be something that, like this, that isn't so invasive as cameras might be. I mean, if it has to be cameras, it has to be cameras because safety first. But to develop technologies that aren't as invasive, that are respectful of a person's private space, I think that's just brilliant. I think it's absolutely brilliant. Okay, let's take a look at some things. And we've talked about car crashes that cause injuries. What about falls that cause injuries? A couple of disclaimers. First of all, nothing can prevent all of the injuries that might result from a fall. And in the case of hip fracture, there are a lot of ways to fracture a hip. You can have osteoporotic bones and be standing in one spot and just turn the upper part of your body, which could cause your hip bone to break, which would then cause you to fall down. And because most falls aren't observed, it's sometimes very difficult to figure this out. But community dwelling seniors are the worst, to get them to do something to prevent fractures from falls. And they are the ones who are going to end up in long-term care. But anyway, the second disclaimer is that I own a company that is the Canadian distributor for HipSaver hip protectors, which is the #1 brand in Canada. I think in the world too, but certainly in Canada. So it is HipSavers that I'm going to show you. HipSavers have in fact been tested at Simon Fraser University, and there have been 2 hip protector brands identified as the top. HipSaver is one of them, so I'm very confident in showing you this brand. But really, it's the concept of hip protectors that I would like to demystify for our viewers. As I say, community dwelling seniors are absolutely the worst. They don't want to wear anything that would make them look different from somebody else. I can tell you that I've had on hip protectors and nobody has been able to tell. Nobody can tell. I think that when we think of hip protectors, certainly in Canada, we think of being a hockey player and those giant hip pads that we see our hockey playing athletes wear. This is nothing like that at all. So I'm just going to show you two or three models, just so that you get the idea of what they are. This particular one is called Slim Fit. It's just regular underwear. And there are the hip pads on the side. It's underwear. So the hip pad itself is just half an inch thick. So that's half an inch on either side. So that's an inch. I have had this particular model also on a lady who was very slim. This was a women's auxiliary conference a few years ago. And I asked this one lady who was very slim, and I knew she was going to be at the conference, if she would wear one of these hip protectors for me. Very tall, very slender lady, and she had on black dress pants and a shirt that was tucked in and a cardigan. And at the end of my little piece of the talk, I said, now somebody in this room is wearing hip protectors. Can you tell who? Stand up. Figure out who's wearing the hip protectors. And nobody could tell. And they were shocked when this woman, whose name was Louise, identified herself as the person wearing the hip protectors. So really, you know that you've got them on. Nobody else knows that you've got them on. They're underwear. And you can wear this as underwear. I mean, it doesn't look all that different from regular underwear. There's a men's version with a fly front. It's white. The men don't know either. Now, one of the problems that sometimes people will run into as we age is a bit of urge incontinence. You know, when you got to go, and you don't want to wait. And for some people, that is as simple as solving the problem by wearing a sanitary napkin in their underwear. For other people, they want something a little bit different. So that slim fit model, which is cut to the body, to the shape of the body, is available in a model that looks like this. So let me pull back a little bit here. So it is called open bottom, and it's essentially crotchless underwear. Has little leg straps, so it'll hold it on the leg for you, but you wear this right next to your body, and it has the same hip protector pads in it. I mean, this is very slim. This is a very slim profile. And nobody knows you're not wearing underwear, frankly. The people that I've dealt with who are challenged with urge incontinence, they gave up long ago wearing underwear because nobody can tell. And when they've got to go, they've got to go. So this company has also developed some outerwear, and these are sweatpants. They look just like sweatpants. So I'll show you this one. This is black, and there are the hip pads on the side. Hard to tell because it is black, but there they are. And again, that slim profile. Now on this, I'm not going to tell you that you can't see the hip pads because of the way that they're sewn in. But if you wear a blouse over top of your sweatpants typically, or a shirt or a sweatshirt, whatever it is, they're going to cover it. So nobody will know. I think that the underwear versions for people who are community dwellers who go out walking, but you know, so many falls happen around the house. So I'm not going to tell you shouldn't wear them around the house. You should wear your hip protectors around the house, whatever brand you choose. But I don't want you to be intimidated by them. They're just underwear. They are just underwear. And I know we all think we're 30. We all think we're 30. I'm 63 and I still think I'm 30. That's just the reality of it. But I'm not. I'm really not. You know, we did a quick little Facebook Live last night. Well, it wasn't so quick. It was, you know, a good half hour. But when we talked about driving, and I said, I don't really love driving at night anymore. But, you know, that brings with it other realities. And one of the realities is that I can fall on ice. I have fallen on ice. I have not broken a hip yet. But when I go outside to walk a dog and it's wintertime and icy outside, you're darn tootin' I wear my hip protectors because I do not want to end up in long-term care at my age. And I do not want to not have the ability to take care of the activities of daily living at my age. I'm not ready to be dependent on other people to that point. So I have to take my own advice and advocate for myself and wear my hip protectors when I go outside. I will get to the point where I should wear them inside too. Right now, the house is okay. But you know, one of the things I also want to show you is head protectors. You know, these are made in Australia. This particular head protector, I'm going to just put it together here for you because it was flattened. But you know, 40% of the time when people fall, they also hit their heads. And if you are taking blood thinners and you hit your head, a brain bleed is a real possibility for you. And that's not something that they can see when you go to the hospital unless they do a CT scan. And they don't always do CT scans. Not all hospitals have CT scanners. And unless there is cause to think that you might be suffering from a brain bleed, they won't send you. So again, you have to advocate for yourself. So this little dandy is a head protector. And I know it looks you look at this and you think, geez, I don't know. I don't think I want to wear that. You can put, we're good Canadians. We all have a toque in our closet. I've got several. You can put a toque over top of this and nobody will know you've got it on. Headscarves, you can wear a headscarf. You can wear a bucket hat. Bucket hats look good on everybody. You can wear a bucket hat over top of this. It's actually made to have things put over top of it. So you can advocate for yourself and protect yourself while at the same time maintaining the kind of appearance that you want to maintain for yourself. And that is people not thinking that you look different. You know what? Everybody knows that we're older. So, such as it is. Non-slip socks are a thing as well. We sell non-slip socks. I wear non-slip socks around the house because I don't love wearing shoes. I prefer to go barefoot, but non-slip socks, we have those. There are flooring materials now that you can get. They're a bit too expensive for retrofitting or even outfitting a newly built home, but there are certainly a number of solutions. What you don't want to do around your house is have throw rugs that aren't taped down. You don't want to have cords that are out in the middle of the floor that you could trip over. You want to train your animals so that they watch out for you, not the other way around. Because you may get up in the night and, there's a dog or a cat that's somewhere that they weren't when you went to bed. And besides which, you're half awake. You get up at, 3 a.m. to pee. You're half awake, half asleep. How do you know what's going on under your feet? And it's dark. And a lot of people don't turn on lights. So, there is a really good resource for members of the Oldish. I'm going to give you that website right now. We'll give you that website. Go to the Oldish and you can sign up for a free membership. Now, the reason that there needs to be a membership at all is because there needs to be something password protected, because there are medication checklists back there. We've talked about those lots of times on this broadcast and in various articles on the Oldish. There's a medication checklist. There's a home safety checklist. There are other tools that are available for you that some of them require you to fill in some personal information and you can save them on the website, and you don't want other people seeing that. So the membership is free, but we do need to put you behind this firewall so that your private information is kept private. So there's a home safety checklist that was developed by Dr. Vicki Scott out in BC. Dr. Scott is now retired, but she works on various projects on a project-by-project basis, but she and her team developed this home safety checklist and very generously allowed us to modify it for use on our website. So it's pretty simple. You put the name of the house. You can do umpteen of these checklists. You can do your own house, your mom's house, your aunt's house, your grandpa's house. You can do as many houses as you want and save them. But it gives you a room-by-room audit, and it asks you questions about the various rooms. And you answer yes or no, yes or no. And when you submit all of these questions, it tells you how to turn the no's into yeses so that your home will be safer for you. Advocate for yourself. Make sure your home is safe. I mean, for most of us, our home is our safe, secure zone. So we want to make sure that as we age, we keep it physically as safe for ourselves as we possibly can. So home safety checklists on the oldish.com. That is where you want to be, and you can fill those out. So that's it. That's all we've got for you this week. That's a lot. That was a lot. There will still be more on our website. There will still be more on our Facebook page. So I welcome any of you to go to those resources at any time. And here's another benefit of getting a membership to the Oldish. You can do a library. You can do your own library of articles that pertain to you, because we've got almost 1,200 articles now. So not all of them are going to pertain to you in this stage of life that you're at now, but you might see something that you want to share with somebody. Or you might be, on the subway going home from work, or on a lunch break, or anywhere else, and you see an article and you think, oh, geez, I want to read that better next time, and I want to be able to follow those links. So you just hit add to library, and it will add it to your personal library for you. And you can take them out of the library when you've finished reading them, but so you can have as big or as small a library as you want. So it's a great resource. So I invite you to do that. There are so many benefits to this community. And I thank all of you for your comments and your support of our website and our Facebook page and for watching our weekly Facebook Live videos. I invite you back next Wednesday for another edition of the Oldish Live, and we'll have more topics for you and more great stuff to talk to you about. Until then, please remember, it does take a village to age a senior.